thank you everybody for being here. I'm just gonna orient just a little refresh on the coalition before we jump into our breakout rooms. And we do have this kind of guiding question that I'm gonna put in the chat. We're revisiting this question to kind of figure out for our community, where do we envision the Kearsarge community in 5 years? So keeping a long view as we are all working in food and nutrition security, hunger relief in various aspects. We're trying to, really hone in on some things that we can do right now, boots on the ground, specific projects. And we want to keep in mind kind of a broader vision for our community and what do we hope for the Kearsarge region in 5 years and what are we moving towards together. Um, the benefit of this coalition and why we're spending time, an hour each month, and some other gatherings together is to make sure that we can work beyond the scope of our individual organizations or even our individual selves as volunteers and community members. And it's inherently kind of a messy process, and it's not always clear what we're doing or where we're going. But as I am kind of steeping myself into the coalition building work, I am just reminding myself that that is part of the process. Thankfully, we do have some folks helping to lead the way, including New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and they have shared a lot of resources that I have found to be super, super helpful. So I'm just going to keep orienting us to this food access coalition structure. This one I made, borrowed from the Hunger Solutions, made it specific to the FEED Kearsarge Coalition. So FEED, as a reminder, stands for Food Expansion, Education, and Distribution. It has a backbone team that is organizing the whole thing and helping to provide resources and direction. That is, again, the Kearsarge Food Hub and Kearsarge Neighborhood Partners. We have a lovely advisory committee representing different sectors of the folks that we're trying to serve. And then here is this ecosystem of partners where we all fall into one place or another. And really what these bigger bubbles here are the work group containers that hold specific kinds of work. And so we've always used the Tray It Forward as the example of a project that has a leader, the Kearsarge Neighborhood Partners, and other partners that plug in to get that specific project done each and every year. And we're here today to start building out more work groups. And we are really trying to focus. So a lot of great ideas have come from the Food Security Summit, the Food Security Report that CARE helped us produce, and every single person on this call has things that they really care about. We are going to focus on these three areas today. SNAP application assistance. How do we help more neighbors get onto this really effective program? Gleaning and food recovery. How do we, make the best of food from our farms that might get wasted or other food in grocery stores or otherwise that gets wasted? There's a lot of food that's wasted all the time while people go hungry. And that's just unacceptable. And we also have our community FREEdge network. So it's exciting to have folks here who are starting a community FREEdge. We have Cassie, who has been running our FREEdge here at the Kearsarge Food Hub for like 5 years now. And we are trying to figure out how to deepen and expand work in these three areas. And our goal really is to take the rest of the year as we're building this coalition to populate this ecosystem with more working groups and to figure out how to resource those groups. So if you're working in some area already, everybody's busy and has a lot going on. If you're working in one of these areas already, the hope is that you connect with other people working in that area, and then we figure out how to bring in more volunteer support, more funding, whatever it is that that group needs to advance its work in the community. And in an ideal world, each of these groups will have a very clear leader, and it won't necessarily be the coalition leadership. And so those are all things that we're trying to figure out together. And I'm going to leave a few questions in the chat before we all decide which breakout room we'd like to go in and kind of dig into these areas a little bit more. Before I do that, any questions or comments at this time?
Anna,
Yes.
I have a quick question. Do you see our going into these rooms as reflecting a longer term engagement with that topic? Or if we're uncertain where we might best fit, are we okay kind of floating to one today and we'll have an opportunity maybe to delve into another time?
Absolutely. This is not a life sentence. This is a I also added a fourth room because I noticed the group got a little bit bigger since we made this plan for the day, and that is public education. So
Oh,
I am have been leading kind of publishing letters to the community. One of the goals of our coalition work is to make sure our whole community understands the problems, like shares a common understanding of the problems of food and nutrition insecurity. So that's a fourth room that folks can go in. And really it's just about anybody in the group, and we have some plants of some of us who have been working on in these areas pretty diligently. Give an overview of the current status of that program or project area. Maybe talk about potential partners or resources already working in the area, folks that aren't on the call or anything that you know of. And then where do you want to see this service area grow in the next 6 months to a year? So we're gonna keep in mind that bigger direction of where we want our community to be in 5 years. But as we go into these discussions, let's have a shorter timeline of how can we have SNAP application assistance kind of grow and improve over the next 6 months and make it really specific and a shorter timeline. And how do we get there? So we're brainstorming. We're tapping our collective genius here to brainstorm how to move these specific work areas forward. I hope everybody had great discussions. We would love to, as a bigger group, kind of hear a few main takeaways from your sessions. Does anybody from the SNAP slash WIC, don't want to exclude WIC, but application assistance group want to share some high point thoughts? Steve, are you talking? Or you talking to some other meeting?
I
No,
nominate Lindsay
no, I'm sorry.
Bovair to do it.
What'd you say, Gene?
I nominate Lindsay Bovair to give the report. I think she had the deepest expertise.
Hmm.
And I'm happy to tag team it. So I think we tried to identify what programs the group wants to focus on for outreach. So SNAP and WIC in particular, but also senior commodity foods, essentially kind of focusing on state and federal programs that we can assist folks in enrolling in. And then Steve had chatted with Martin Sheeran about doing some outreach similar to the tax season outreach that they did, where you can essentially have open office hours to help folks from the community to enroll in SNAP or WIC or appropriate programs that they may be eligible for. And to do that, we're going to work on identifying trainings and coalition opportunities for folks to join to be able to be appropriately trained to do that kind of work. And then they had brought up that some low hanging fruit and intervention would be to get from the New Hampshire Food Bank these rack cards that just have the application assistance number and some kind of facts and myths about SNAP enrollment and to distribute them throughout the community. That would be an easy way for folks to be able to get immediate assistance with SNAP enrollment through the assistance line at the New Hampshire Food Bank. Yeah, and I was actually about to put in the chat that the trainer from 603 Legal Aid was Peter Burke, that we had a few years ago that was able to do kind of a high level, actually it was like fairly in depth, I would say, training about how to enroll folks in SNAP and kind of the background information about the application process. So we can certainly reach out to him to get that started as well. And Steve, if I missed something, jump in, or anyone else, obviously.
I'll just add a couple of things, Lindsay. While we all agreed that we should do SNAP, WIC, and senior commodity, I think a number of us felt that we also should look at Medicaid training, and that will be, on the side. So we'll get going with the three food ones. But as long as we have people who are trained and people are sitting down, dollars to Medicaid go to food also, not just SNAP and WIC. So
Hmm.
there was
Yeah. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Hannah.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. I thought you were
Oh,
wrapping
no,
up.
no.
You go ahead.
And then the other thing is we'd love to have the trainer come here. And Jen McCracken expressed a lot of interest in having St. Andrews host the training. And then I think if we could just start with the pilot and in a community where there's a lot of interest. But within our group, there was a lot of interest. And I think everybody in the group will probably end up jumping in.
That's great. And so, in an ideal world, I think there's a clear kind of leader moving this forward, and you can use the FEED Kearsarge email group and alert everybody to the materials, to the training, and kind of move it all forward. And that's really, really exciting. Do we have updates from the Gleaning and Food Recovery group? Settle down.
I think Rob.
I'll take a stab at
I
it.
think Rob probably
Yeah.
has the best handle on the discussion. I was specifically interested in mobile food pantries, but we didn't get into that in depth. But we did talk about some of the challenges of recruiting volunteers for physically demanding work, and also, the time sensitivity of suppliers, farmers, in terms of having to distribute the food relatively quickly in a really narrow time frame. But Rob can talk more about a grant that's pending, which we were all very interested in. But it was certainly a great discussion.
Yeah, we're looking at trying to coordinate these efforts because the Merrimack Conservation Commission with Stacy has done a great job trying to coordinate some gleaning efforts with folks, especially with Spring Ledge. And I know Laura and her team have done some good work at the pantries, getting food recovery from Target and some other places. But it's sporadic at best, and I think to have some coordinated effort regionally is something that would be really important. But to do that efficiently and effectively, you need to have both the aggregation side of it and where's all the food going to come from, but you also have to have the distribution side and how are we going to make sure that it actually gets dispersed. And so it's coordinating those efforts. It's working together with lots of different groups in this community and trying to figure out what that path is. And as Russ said, there's a lot of different methods. So using the pantries is one method, but doing stuff mobile with food trucks and stuff are other options. And so there's a lot of excitement around it, and I think there's a lot of neat potential. So we're looking forward to working with Kearsarge neighborhood partners to try to figure out if there's a collective path that we can work on together.
Very exciting, and we'll continue to provide updates and bring in the right partners through these meetings. So that's another direct outcome of making sure we're all, connecting on a regular basis. Let's talk about FREEdge update real quick. FREEdge Network guys, anybody want to share high-level thoughts?
I can pop in. I took notes. We mostly talked about the Springfield FREEdge, which is super exciting, and the fact that it's a truly grassroots movement and it was a community assessed need, community driven. But as I think Katie said at one point, because it's existing as everything else is in a larger systems, there are some barriers to it, and some of the barriers are the fact that they're not yet a 501c3. Not a nonprofit. And so to go down the commercial route of doing this is more expensive and it's lengthier. So trying to find a balance for that. And then another thing we talked about was getting a financial sponsor or a fiscal sponsor. The valleys was brought up. Also conservation districts were brought up, or conservation organizations. I threw out the Merrimack County Conservation District as a potential. And now I see that Stacy Luke is here. But so just trying to brainstorm what would make sense for that. And then we also got into a bit of the liability insurance of it. And we know that food is covered by the law, but what about the property and what does that look like?
And I'm really looking forward to, I know this group has used the FREEdge manual that we created at the Food Hub. Our model that we discuss in that is very specific to like running it here at Speed. So I'd be very curious to take the lessons from Springfield and trying to get something like this going in that space to these specific challenges and how this, can work. And I think if any organization here is a potential fiscal sponsor or has any potential grant funds or any funding resources that can support something like a FREEdge. I sent my email and Mel's email in the chat. And so any notes and follow-up or resources that you want us to share back out with the group, please send to us and we'll share out the notes by end of day tomorrow. And I think fiscal sponsorship for new projects like this is a big need. Seddon, do you want to quickly follow up with our public education discussion? Oh, you're muted. Wait, I will ask you to unmute.
Sorry about that. Um, so we talked about the current status of public education and food security, and there was a feeling that there's a divide between people who see food insecurity as a personal failing. People should pull them up self by their bootstraps. They should work harder, and things will be fine, which creates external stigma around being food insecure, which is often internalized and then leads to people being uncomfortable asking for support and help. And there's a divide between that personal failing group, looking at it that way, and those who recognize societal factors and the structure of our food systems contributing to food insecurity. So we went in from there to say, what are the factors in our food systems and our society that contribute to food insecurity? We identified 5 things and then brought in a 6th. So cost of living outpacing incomes, policies that impact costs and supports for less nutritious food production. We have structural barriers to accessing food, such as transportation and housing, lack of knowledge about nutrition, and how to live well with a limited food budget. And then many people don't prioritize food over nutrition over other expenses may contribute. And then finally, coming back around to stigma, reinforcing food insecurity by reducing people asking for help. We felt for education, we had 2 major audiences. There are probably some subgroups as well, but voters and advocates, people who are in a position to promote change, and then families who are experiencing food insecurity, which would be rather different messaging, though some overlap. And finally, we came up with 2 learning objectives. There will be others, but we ran out of time, that we wanted to help appreciate the impact of agriculture and food policies on food security and insecurity by promote that understanding. And finally, increasing understanding of the root causes of poverty, intergenerational poverty, and help us all recognize that the choices people make in those circumstances may be difficult to understand, but may actually be adaptive to their situation.
Thank you.
Around food choices.
Very, very comprehensive. Thank you so much, Said. And so what we're going to do and is continue to create letters to the community, of which we've already written 2. We've identified that we need a multi-channel kind of promotion of these materials, including digital. Through all of us are welcome to share what we come up with and sign on to these letters. I'm also going to be inviting folks to be guest writers of the letters. So if there's something you are passionate about, you can write it and our group can help get it out there. And it's important to tackle or to make sure we're in spaces like congregations that meet, every week. So the churches are a major resource for us to make sure we're getting these messages out there, and reaching the folks who need to learn about what we're talking about. And really great discussions. I know that we just kind of jammed through a whole hour. We definitely need more time. Are there any very quick updates that folks want to share and make sure this group knows about before we hop off today?
I have one quick question.
Carolyn, yeah.
Hannah, are you able to stay on for 45 seconds after this call ends?
Yeah, I am.
Cool, thanks.
Steve?
Can we get the emails of the people who came to our group, or maybe does the technology allow that to happen?
Yes, we will look into the groups and then you guys can talk offline. That's excellent. I believe that's possible. And Mel, if you don't mind just jotting that in the notes as an action item, that's a really good idea. Denise, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I am treasurer at my church in Hopkinton, and we are a fiscal sponsor for the past 10 years for Got Lunch, which is a program that gives backpacks to kids at school. It was started by a school principal, and then he had left, and so a grassroots group outside of our church put it together and kept it going, but they were not also registered as a 501c3, and they couldn't open a checking account, and so there are some logistics to that, and we are able to take that on. So if anybody just wants to reach out, I can just explain. There's a simple agreement in place, and our insurance covers it. And they are using our facilities for people to come pick up. It's not like a third spot. But if anybody wants to know what that looks like, possibly for at least a church, I can help.
That's excellent, Denise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Denise, like we'd love to follow up with you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, if we can share, I can give you. Well, do they have access to email or my email, or we can figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, Denise and Katie need to connect, so we'll connect you offline for sure. I can do that. And I'm putting into the chat, we have a Farm Bill chat coming up with CARE, Center for Advancing Rural Health Equity, on July 17th. It's a lunch break, your lunch break on a Friday, to talk about the Farm Bill. It's actually in motion right now, and there are still currently opportunities to advocate for a Farm Bill that impacts both food assistance and organic and pesticide-free healthy agriculture. The Farm Bill covers it all, and so we're going to have friends from NOFA, New Hampshire, as well as from New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and myself kind of going over the bill, the current state of the bill, and how we can advocate for those things. This is a 5-year piece of legislation that, if we talk about systems change, that really makes an impact on everything we're talking about today. And I'm going to share every week, we will share and remember that we have this email list, FEED Kearsarge email list, that anybody at any time can use to send an update or a call to action, or a, hey, we're looking to sponsor something, or hey, we need a fiscal sponsor, to the broader group. And we have about 160 contacts in this group in various sectors that are the whole point is to create, ongoing communication and connections between us all. So this is your email list, it's our email list, and we'll continue to build it up. If there are people that you feel like should be on these meetings, please, we have our next meeting coming out in July 16th. I will send an invite. It's free and open to all. And one of the comments I know that you made, Russ, is that bringing in more volunteers, more community power to help kind of move some of these projects forward is really important. So we'll look forward to everybody here on this call being an ambassador for our next coalition meeting.